This is a show that brings to the forefront newsmakers, entertainers, and those making a difference in our lives and in our world. Each week is a new adventure with topics ranging from the most serious and cutting edge to the most lighthearted and entertaining.
This is Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon.
Greetings, everyone. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business. And this show is also co-branded with My Father's Place Radio and a lot of other endeavors. We have an incredible show today. We're going to go back to, amongst other things, July 28th, 1973. Where were you back then? Where were you back then in 1973? If you were in New York State at the Watkins Glen Speedway, you may have been with 600,000 of your closest music fans. And somebody who is actually there is with us today, and that's Donna Swarthout. So welcome to our show.
Glad to have me there.
So you are a lover of music.
Yes, I am. I'm a very avid collector of music and concerts.
All right. So let's talk about your love of music. Concerts, albums, meeting all kinds of rock people. Could you talk about that a little bit? How did you get started in all of this?
I was 1967. My first concert was Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons at the Chemung County Fair in Elmira, New York.
Okay. And just we're working with a new soundboard, so we got a lot of things. All right. So that was Frankie Valli. Now, what radio station did you listen to back then?
Oh, WEHH was back then.
Right. And then, so growing up, okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. What was your first 45?
My first 45 was down in the Boondocks, I believe.
Okay.
Bill Joy, yeah.
What was your first vinyl record purchase?
Actually, that was another Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Okay. And then what then what were like the first few concerts that you watched live on television?
The Beatles on
Ed
Sullivan Show. Yes. It wasn't a concert, but
right. Okay.
Music.
Well, okay. Now for those people out there that didn't get a chance to see Ed Sullivan really brought some of the greatest performers. I know that I've seen videos. I'm pretty sure it was the Mamas and Papas. I'm sure there was
The Doors.
The Doors. In fact, I think there was a little controversy about the Doors because Jim Morrison was somewhat unpredictable. And I think, didn't he have Elvis Presley on?
Yes, he did.
Right. And I think all those hip moves were considered a little controversial.
Above the waist.
Yes.
Always above the waist.
All right. So you embarked on a journey of music exploration.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So what was some of the early shows, and then when did you decide or realize that you were like, oh my God, this is great stuff?
Well, I live near Watkins Glen, which also gives me near Cornell University and Ithaca College. And back in the 70s, they had concerts at Barton Hall, like Elton John. The list went on and on and on up at Ithaca. They had Sly and the Family Stone down at Elmira College in the 1970s. So I was hooked on concerts from the 1970s until now.
Okay, and I bet you the ticket prices were not that horrible back then.
No, $2 to $5 of tickets. Where I saw Elton John for $5.
Wow. Did you garner a very big T-shirt and memorabilia and merch and swag collection?
Yes, I have. I have to this very day way over 100 T-shirts. I'm pathetic. Every time I go to a concert, you have to buy a T-shirt.
What was the cheapest one, and what was the most expensive one?
Actually, the cheapest one was Summer Jam. It cost me like $5.
Wow. Now in those days, the shirts were not of the highest quality.
No, they were 100% cotton, and they shrunk.
They shrunk, and if you wash them too many times, they kind of really faded away.
Yes, they did.
You know the song "Not Fade Away." Yeah, well, that's what the That's what the shirts, maybe that's what Eric Clapton meant by bell bottom blues. I don't want to fade away. And then what kinds of memorabilia did you acquire? Was it keychains? Was it, what?
I had an knack for getting the band members to give me their guitar picks and their drumsticks.
Okay.
So I have quite a collection of drumsticks and guitar picks.
Okay. So off the top of your head, who do you recall having in your collection?
Well, just this year I got a guitar pick at the State Fair from REL Speedwagon. So it's kind of like fresh in my mind.
Okay. Now, with guitar picks, you can get one, but on drumsticks, sometimes you only get one.
Yes.
So do you ever try to find the other one or swap or anything like that to get the pair?
There was one time with John K. Steppenwolf, I got both of them handed to me.
Wow. That's really, really cool. So there came a time when you were at Summer Jam.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about, so I did a little bit of research. It was at the Watkins Glen Speedway on July 28th, 1973. And it featured three bands. Do you remember those bands?
Oh, it was the Allman Brothers, the band, and the Grateful Dead.
All right. Who opened?
The band opened.
Wow. And I from what I understood, the concert was scheduled to be from like 12 to 7. So that's a lot. That's a lot of time for three bands.
Well, it went on for 2 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what was memorable to you about the whole? First of all, how'd you get there? From what I saw on the internet, the traffic was just unbelievable.
I went up there on Wednesday. I went up. It was my high school in Odessa and Watkins Glen. We sold tickets for it. They had us. We got credit for our senior class for selling the tickets. So I got opportunity to go up there on Wednesday.
Okay.
Before the trip.
So you beat the traffic.
Yeah, I left my car at the mall because I didn't want to have my car up there, and I rode up with some friends and never saw them after I got there. I got completely separated from them.
Oh wow! And then, so what'd you do as far as food and all the other things that you need a place to sleep?
Well, I went up there with a backpack and a tent and a sleeping bag, and I lost all three of them. I really didn't care.
Okay. Did you bring food with you?
Yes, just like, candy bars and chips and things like that, but that was gone in the first day. But it didn't matter.
No. The weather upstate can be really hot. Now, I know it's upstate and the weather's a little bit more gentle and, near the mountains it's a little cooler. So but the thing is, this was just an open area in the blazing sun. So
yeah.
What was it like? Was it mosquito-y? Was it hot? Was it swampy?
It was hot, and then of course it started raining one day. So, but I was amongst. I didn't know at the time, but I was amongst 600,000 people.
Did it feel like 600,000 people?
Oh, you could, as far as you could see, it was just wall to wall people having a good time. So
how did people get around? I mean, just getting on the subways is a pain in the, a pain in the rear. How do you navigate to get from point A to point B?
Well, people, the next town was Elmira, and that's like 30 miles away. People were riding on cars bumper to bumper just to get to the concert. The whole, area was nothing but a parking lot. Route 14, Route 17 was a parking lot. So people would just leave their cars wherever they were at and walk in, ride on cars, bumper to bumper, just right on the back of the cars.
So it kind of sounds like it had the same kind of Woodstock traffic pattern,
Yes, but
okay.
It was larger than Woodstock. And it was in my neighborhood. So
did they plan on it being as big as?
Oh no.
So
we
what
only
happened?
Sold 150,000 tickets. That's all we sold. And then all those people showed up, and of course the great gates just got crushed, and it was a free concert.
Wow. As I understand it, the ticket was $10, right?
$10, yes.
Wow. Now
and that included the parking and the camping.
I saw that. That's an incredible value when you think about it. So what was it like being in the whole camping thing? Was it communal? were people like trading T-shirts and memorabilia, things like that?
That's not what. Remember, this was the 1970s. They were trading other stuff, you might say.
Things that are legal now.
Things that are legal in New York State now, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
So, but it was the 1970s, so the trading and the stuff that was going on was, it was the 70s. All I can say.
All right. Now, do you still have your ticket stub from the show?
Unfortunately, I sold it on eBay a few years ago for $495.
That's a good deal for a piece of paper that you paid $10 for.
Yes, I know.
So why'd you sell it? You have such a big collection. Just
it was a time. It was difficult in my life, you might say. So
right.
it was needed to be.
All right. Did you make any friends at the concert?
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, I met a person from Boston, and when I decided to be a teenage whatever, and looked him up in Boston to have him put me up for a couple of weeks, and I knocked at his doorstep, and I jumped in his arms. He goes, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Don't you remember me?" It was his twin brother that greeted me at the door.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was
This is all before the internet, right? This is all before.
So it was in 1973. Yes, right before the internet.
So how did you find somebody without looking them up? In those days, it really required true detective work to find someone.
No, he gave me his phone number and his address and told me if I was ever in town to look him up.
Okay.
So I did about 6 months later. Yes.
All right. And so that must have been kind of cool.
Yeah, but his twin brother said, "My brother just got married today."
So
it was a stopper. So
did you go like awkward?
Actually, his brother put me up for 2 weeks, so it worked out okay.
That's it. So who else did you make friends with, and do you still keep in touch with any of these people?
The most kind of the person I met that helped me out, I was trying to buy pint of chocolate milk that back then probably sold for $0.25, and they were trying to rip me off and sell it to me for $5.
Wow.
And we were hungry, and it was hot, and this big, huge mountain of a guy walked up to the guy and said, "Give her the chocolate milk." His name was Buddha, and he was from the Hells Angels.
Wow.
And the guy gave me the chocolate milk, and Buddha said, "If you're ever in LA, you want to look me up." I said, "Oh, yeah, sure, okay." But that was the strangest thing that happened to me at the concert.
Wow. So let's talk about the music of the concert. All right. So
it was just wonderful.
So first of all, how was the sound? Because it's hard to imagine the acoustics in a place that has to reach 600,000 people who themselves are making their own noises.
Well, don't forget it was a racetrack. So they had speakers all over the area for announcing the races going on. It was where they had the Grand Prix, the Can-Am, the Formula Racing back in those days. So we had speakers all over the place. So the sound was great.
The sound was great. Because those were sort of like public announcement speakers as opposed to, music-oriented speakers. It wasn't like these were Marshall amps, you know what I'm saying?
No, but
it was good.
The sound that they had, they brought in just like truckloads of speakers on the stage. I mean, part of the stage looked nothing but speakers. The sound was awesome.
Wow. Now, where were you sitting, and what was your view?
Well, there was times I was in the front row because I was a local person, and I was there early, and then I wandered around for just acres and acres, and then I find my way back to the front row again.
Now, if you were in the front row, did you kind of have like you were just at your neck wrenched and you had to like look all the way up because the stage high? It must have been high.
Yeah, but I had friends there, and they put me up on their shoulders, so I sat on their shoulders. The locals.
There's a huge advantage being the local person.
Huge advantage for being a local person. Yeah, you're there first, and you have, and plus some of the people that were security and everything up there were the local people that lived here.
So did you buy a shirt? Did you get a shirt?
Yes, I did buy a shirt. Yes.
Do you still have it? Oh,
that was another eBay thing that I had. So, and made a bad mistake. I spelt a word wrong, so I really got taken on that one. So
Did you
got
sell
$700.
Did you sell the ticket with the shirt as a combo package?
No, I sold them separately at the time.
Okay. So what memories do you have of Summer Jam that people would not think of intuitively? It was kind of like, a big gathering like Woodstock. You had amazing bands that people are well familiar with. I mean, the Grateful Dead is well familiar, the band and the Allman Brothers. But what happened there that it was like you wouldn't know that if you weren't there?
It was amazing because there was no trouble. There wasn't any people, causing any trouble, or it was all just a good time.
Okay.
And to me, it was amazing that all those people were there just having, there was people we have waterfalls in Watkins Glen, and people were in the waterfalls showering naked, and we had people walking around the town naked. But it was the 70s.
Well, what if they're walking around naked? What'd they do for money? Like how'd they carry their loose change?
Well, some of them were naked with backpacks.
Oh,
It was kind of cute.
So
they would take their clothes off to go into the waterfalls to bathe.
Wow, that's real camping, guys. So what did the local town? I think at the time had about 1,700 people. So how did the town prepare for an onslaught of hungry people who needed, fuel for the cars and sandwiches and chips and whatever, coffee?
They didn't. Everybody, they ran out of everything by the first day, and they had, they brought in food from the National Guard or something. But yeah, it was, the town was not ready for that kind of people. But it was, you look back at it, nothing happened. No. It was a good time.
Wow. Now, have you looked since that time? We only have a minute left in this segment, but since that time, have you looked back, in the internet to watch some of the performances, and has that brought back any memories to you?
Yes. As a matter of fact, somebody sent me a little short clip one time, and I was watching it, and I saw my brother in the clip. I never saw my brother at the concert, but I saw him in the clip.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. So let's do this. My name is Richard Solomon. The show is Taking Care of Business. We're looking back at the Watkins Glen, July 28th, 1973 Summer Jam with Donna Swarthout. Who's there?
It is 50. It's going to be 50 years on 2023. They ought to do another Summer Jam in Watkins Glen and repeat it.
And you know what? If you go on the internet, if you look, there's a website that's called summerjam50.com, and they're actually talking about that. But we'll be right back. Listening to Taking Care of Business, My Father's Place Radio, Richard Solomon, and we were with Donna, who was at Summer Jam and is lobbying for Summer Jam 50. Okay, so for those who are just tuning in, Donna loves music. She's been to all kinds of concerts, but one that she wants to really bring to our listeners out there is the Summer Jam from 1973, because it's really not well known. Woodstock has the song by Joni Mitchell, sung by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. There's a movie everybody knows about. There's a big museum up in Bethel Woods. There's a concert arena still there that pays homage to Woodstock. But most people don't seem to hear music or references or songs or historical references in everyday radio, satellite, terrestrial, whatever, about Summer Jam. And yet it was bigger than Woodstock. And I don't know, is it because the music was different? It was only 3 bands. It didn't have Jimi Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner. Is it just didn't have some pizzazz? Was it too jammy? What do you think?
No, I know, just because it was a different time and it was at Watkins Glen, but the music was great. I mean, Dickie Betts, I've read later, said that the legends go down in history when it comes down to that concert. He quoted it many times.
Wow. So Did you meet anybody famous while you were at Summer Jam?
Yeah, not famous, but I did meet one of the Hells Angels, but that's not famous.
All right. But you did meet a lot of famous people later on in your concert goings.
Yes.
All right, let's shift over and talk about that for a minute. So who was in pre-production we were talking, and the name Wolfman Jack came to the surface, and let's talk. So for the people who may not know, who's Wolfman Jack?
Okay. How about American Graffiti? You have to have seen that movie.
That's okay. That's true. I didn't even think about that because I always think of him on television doing the midnight special. You know. But all right. By the way, he was born in Brooklyn. I did not know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I also did not know that originally he did radio from Mexico.
Yeah, he's outlawed.
Right. And the thing is, they used like a 250,000 watt station. So it was essentially what was sort of like satellite is today, because I was reading that you could hear him going cross country on your radio because the signal was so strong. I guess they had an antenna very close to the border, and they had a huge, powerful signal, and it penetrated a lot of North America. And at some point, I think he moved his production to part of the United States, and then they would ship the tapes to Mexico just to play it because he had such a gigantic reach. So how did you get to meet him?
Well, besides going to concerts all the time, I help promote car shows in South Florida. And he was at one of my car shows, and I said, "Hey, Wolfman, you want to go out to my house in Jupiter Farms and howl with my wolves?" And he said, "Sure, lady." So we hopped in my Corvette, and we went up to my house, and I pulled up in the driveway, and he goes, "Oh my God, you have wolves." I said, "Well, So, and it wasn't cell phone time, so there was no video I could take of. He got out, and he goes, "Well, what do I do?" I said, "You just start howling." And he got out of the car, and he walked over, and he started howling, and my wolf started howling. And the neighbor guy walked over, and he goes, "Is that who I think it is?" And I said, "Yeah, well, the one and only Wolfman." And he howled with my wolves for about 15, 20 minutes or so.
Wow.
Then I took him back to the car show, and his agent goes, "Well, how was her wolves?" He goes, "My God, this lady really had wolves."
So for the people who don't know you as well as I do, how did you have wolves? What was the story about that? Because most people don't keep wolves.
In the state of Florida, you can have exotic animals, and I just wanted wolves, so I had a couple pairs of wolves. My neighbors had lions, other neighbors had tigers, and it was South Florida.
I bet you there was a lot of meat consumed in that neighborhood.
Sold, yes.
Wait, so where did you go to the store and get a puppy, that wolf chow or something? Or
No, they actually ate dog food. I did give them some meat sometime and some bones, but they ate dog food.
Oh, okay. And what were they like? What were they like as were they like pets, or was it more like a sanctuary?
No, they were pets. I mean, they came in the house and I had two daughters at the time, and we were a pack, and they would be very protective over me and my children. So let's put it that way. I never got my house robbed.
So when it was show and tell at school, did they bring their pets in?
Yes, my youngest daughter, I believe we had to take one of the wolves in for show and tell. And of course, all the pajama parties, everybody had to see the wolves out back when we had pajama parties.
And was there howling contests?
Yeah. They really howl when the full moon comes. I mean, they howled a lot, but when the full moon come out, they did howl more.
So there's the Wolfman, and then I believe you know some people from Steppenwolf.
Yeah, John Kay.
Okay.
I did car shows with him, and then he just happened to. We were his roadie and stuff. So they said, "Well, come on down the Keys and everything," and then we actually went down the Keys because I worked for a probation office, and they were sorry that we never got to do much of anything, so they took us to the Keys for the weekend.
Wow. And so who else have you met that was part of the world of entertainment, rock and roll?
There's, there's so many different ones. Like this summer, for instance, I went to 20 different concerts in 30 days.
Right. So it's like you were kind of like a deadhead, but not like just to one band. You just really just moved around.
Music, yes.
Yeah.
If there's a concert within 100 miles, I'm usually there.
Wow. So so like, okay, this year or the last couple of years, who have you seen and hung out with?
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit older now. Back when I was in my 20s or 30s, I could get backstage passes. But now that you're older, that wears off kind of. But I can give you the list of the bands I did see this summer in concert.
All right, who'd you see?
Okay, Zappa Band, Foreigner, Train, REO Speedwagon, Joan Jett, Cheap Trick, King Crimson, Grand Funk, The Starship, the Allman Band, Hermits, Sheena Easton, Blue Oyster Cult, Beetlejuice, Wild Feathers, Great White, Vixen, Three Dog Night, Flogging Molly, Grassroots, Blackberry Smoke, and Virgil Caine.
Wow. Now, have you seen any of these bands that were around a long time ago? And what was like the difference between their performances, like Foreigner, for example? Did you see Foreigner in the 80s maybe?
Blue Oyster Cult I happened to see in the 80s and 90s only because it was the Cult Brothers.
Okay.
That they had split up back then, and my dear friend was no longer with us. Billy Hilfiger played with the Cult Brothers. So I actually got to, when they were playing down in South Florida, I got to see them and go backstage and everything.
So when you're backstage, what's it like?
It's awesome.
Well, describe like so. I've interviewed a lot of the rock musicians in the green room at my father's place when they were at the Roslyn Hotel, and I met Carmen Apici. So he was at the hotel, and we hung out in the lobby, and it was quiet because it was like sound check time. And they were doing the sound check, and I guess they were taking a break. And they didn't have a lot of time to go somewhere between the sound check and the start of the show, and it was too early to eat. So we're sitting down, and I said, "Hey, could we do a little radio?" And he's like, of course, he's cool, and he's like, "Sure." And so we're talking, and we just talked like two people who kind of knew each other for a long time, and I guess now that they've had a lot of experience under their wings, they want to talk about it because currently, if you notice, and this is one of the things that concerns me, is that the radio enterprise doesn't really interview the artists anymore like they used to. There was a time when some band would be in town, Mick Fleetwood Fleetwood Mac at the Garden, or I don't know, Rainbow, or somebody would be at, Richie Blackmore, and they would show up at the radio station. Maybe the concert was at 7 or 8. They'd be at the station at 3. They'd take a couple of calls. They would say hello. They would talk about the new album they were promoting. Maybe the station would give a couple of tickets away. And it was a whole cool venture. And you felt like you got to meet and see a little bit of the inside of the band. And then sometimes, someone like a Jimmy Page would show up and you'd be blown away, that you get to hear about songs and what was the inspiration behind a song, or what they were touring, what was like the tour like, because you never really got a lot of that, in other places. There was no social media. There was no information. I mean, maybe you got it through a magazine or trade papers or things like that, but nothing, that a regular...
Nothing personal.
Yeah.
Back in the days, the local radio station would interview, going back to Frankie Valli, they would have them in the station talking on the radio, giving free tickets out to the concert. They don't have any anymore.
I'll tell you a great little story. So when I went to school, one of the people I sat near in one of my classes was Karen Vecchio. So Karen, if you're listening, give me a call. And she loved Frankie Valli. That's the way she would write. She had all of his album, all the music. I think she had the loose leaf had pictures. Frankie Valli. And I still remember she was a huge fan. So And, it shows you how important music is and was to young people, because we all identified with music. There was I remember there were people who were into Jethro Tull. I remember there were people into all these different bands.
I do have a good story about Jethro Tull, though.
Oh, let's hear it.
Anderson.
Well, yeah, Ian Anderson, yes, who's still touring.
Yeah, I was in Ithaca at a concert, and this guy come up to me with a long trench coat on, and he was passing maybe party favors around, and I used the party favor, and my friend Richie goes, look who that is. And I go, huh? And next thing I know, he takes the flute out and walks up on stage. And I actually partied with Ian Anderson at Cornell back in the 70s.
Wow.
So if you're listening, I remember it.
Well, was that the Aqualung tour, or was that the War Child tour?
I can't remember because, as I said, I was having party favors.
Okay. Now, I can tell you that one of the first albums I remember buying was War Child.
It was probably the Aqualung.
Okay.
Probably.
I remember buying War Child, and I was amazed at the album artwork, especially on the reverse side, because the reverse side of the album had a picture that represented a lot of the songs. Like there was a song called Queen and Country. So there was a song called Skating Away, and you'd see somebody like skating. And then there was War Child. And I just remember it was all these, very cool artistic representations that, you don't really see, because now everything is either streamed or podcast, and the artwork is either, very small, or you're looking at it your phone. And a lot of that, remember Thick as a Brick? It was a newspaper.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you actually have that album?
Yeah, I have over 10,000 record albums. I have every album that you can imagine.
Wow.
Like I had the Big Bamboo album, and just 3 years ago, I went up to Buffalo, and Cheech and Chong signed my album, plus signed the paper. And Tommy Chong goes, "I can't believe you didn't use our paper." And I said, "Well, I used one, but this is like I have several albums." But yeah, I have 10,000 record albums. I have all the Jethro Tull albums.
So where did you buy all of these albums? Did you buy them in flea markets? Did you buy them in record stores? Did you get production copies, or did you get?
No, it was really pretty cool. Both my brothers were in the Navy, and they would come home on leave, and they'd forget to buy their little sister something. So they'd run into the PX when they came home, and they'd buy records for $0.25 a piece. So every time they walked home coming from leave, there would be 10, 15 albums they'd buy me. And that went on for a long time. And then when they passed, I got their record album collection, and then it just went from there. Everybody, when they started getting rid of their albums, "Oh, Donna will take them. Donna will take them." And then even to this very day, I still, like a couple years ago, I was with a dear friend and found up buying 200 albums for $10. And I haven't even sorted them yet. But yeah, it just snowballs when you have that many albums.
How do you keep them from warping?
I have them all standing up. And all of them are standing up, so that won't happen.
Okay, so they're standing up, and then are they kind of pressed together, so to speak, so that they're all tight?
They're all tight.
Okay.
When you have that many.
What do you play them on?
It's funny as you mentioned it. I have about 8 turntables. I'm finding that some of my turntables aren't doing very good right now, but I'm going to take care of that. But I have like 8 turntables, and when I go to flea markets or garage sales and I find more turntables, or I buy them. What
is your turntable of choice? Would it happen to be the Technics?
If I had a choice, it would be a Gerard.
Okay.
But,
and where do you get the liquid for the disc washer? Now, I assume for people who don't know, the disc washer was this like red velvet brick. And when, the bottom part, the base part would be like, I guess, wood, or it was solid. And then the red velvet part, you would put some kind of liquid on, and then you would wipe the disc, and it would take the dust out of it.
I just have a lint. I have a lint cleaner. I always use my lint cleaner. So.
Now, do you miss the hisses, pops, and crackles that vinyl brought?
I can listen to it every day. And
Right.
I don't. That's the sound. I don't want to listen to other sounds. I want the LP sound. When an arm slide goes over and it goes down, there's nothing that beats that sound. And even the scratches are okay.
Many musicians have often said in interviews that the vinyl sound has just never been replicated in any of the new recording technologies.
And never will be.
All right, we're moving along here. So we're going to call back. We're going to come back in a minute. Got to take a quick break. We've got to take care of some things right here, but don't leave. We'll be right back. Richard Solomon welcoming you back. Taking Care of Business, My Father's Place Radio. Sometimes we call this show Out of the Box. There's a lot of platforms. We're all over the place. We're on YouTube. We're on every kind of podcast platform. We are streamcast on FM radio. So wherever we catch you, thank you for listening. All right. So we have Donna here. And Donna is from the great state of New York. And she has been to gazillions of concerts. We, on our station, we have lots of, the rock show. We have all kinds of great music programming. So someone like Donna's a wealth of information. So we were talking a little bit during the break, and so you wanted to go to Woodstock, but you couldn't. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, my mother said I was too young because I was 14, but all my friends from the local town were all going there because they were 16 and 17. So when they showed up to the house, my mother said, no, she's way too young. So, of course, I ran upstairs and pouted. So come Saturday morning, she goes, oh, get into the car. I'll take you to that stupid concert. And we couldn't even get near the place. We got about 2 hours away, and it was nothing but a parking lot. So I did miss that Woodstock, but I did go to Woodstock 25 anniversary.
What was that like?
It was good when they had the old bands playing, but when they introduced the newer bands and they were kind of like violent, and I wound up getting crowd crushed and wound up in a hospital for 3 days.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I got my neck broken
Ooh.
again. Yeah. So,
Ooh.
but the music was really good. Aerosmith was good. Melissa Etheridge was great. It was just when they introduced the new music with the old music, didn't go well.
Gotcha. Well, Woodstock was, I guess, and Summer Jam were kind of well known for having at least relatively peaceful crowds, given the enormous size of what was there. So,
Completely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the close encounters of the, music legend kind. So you got to hang out with the people from Def Leppard?
Yeah, I got backstage with Def Leppard in the 90s down in, I believe it was Miami at that time, at the Miami Beach. And they were pretty awesome.
So did you hang out with Joel Elliott? Did you get to talk to them about what they were? First of all, was this before the show or after the show?
This was after the show.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
And what, do you remember which tour this was, or?
Hysteria, maybe?
Okay, that was a great album.
Yeah, I believe that was the album they were doing that.
Did you get any?
1992.
Did you get any autographs or pictures? Or?
Yes, I got autographs. I have autographs from a lot of these people.
Wow, you have a whole. So how do you keep all the autographs? Like, do you have like albums and photo albums? How do you keep them all organized?
Photo albums.
Okay.
I try to
And when you go to concerts, you don't really get like a program or a guide, and you don't necessarily want to walk around with like vinyl records. So what did you get like them to sign? Like napkins and ticket stubs and things like that?
Well, the ticket stubs usually. But actually, Hermits, when I saw them, he actually signed my album. So
that's cool.
He's really good. He's really good about that.
All right.
So.
And then you would tell me that you had an encounter with Edgar Winter.
Yeah, I was doing a concert/car show down in Florida, and I was talking to Edgar Winters about riding around in a golf cart to pick out his favorite car. And John Kay walked over and he goes, "What are you talking to that bunny rabbit for?" Now, at first I thought they were serious and they were just kidding around. And because I would have to take the band people around to pick out their favorite custom car. So I got to actually meet them by driving around on a golf cart.
Were you insured?
Yeah.
You know,
and my favorite memory is with Dion. He was stuck with me, and he goes, "What's your name?" And I said, "Donna." He goes, "Are you a prima donna?" And I said, "I don't know, but you're stuck with me." So, and at the end of the day, he goes, "Yeah, you're pretty much a prima donna."
well, okay, so Dion's cousins are a band called the Bronx Wanderers, and they're great people, and I've interviewed them, and I've seen them perform, and they're really, really cool. And I think Dion, not that long ago, I think he did like an autobiography, if I'm not mistaken. So, but do you ever read any of the autobiographies of any of the artists?
I've read, I haven't seen her in concert, but I have read Cher's autobiography on her. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that these autobiographies bring anything to light for you as a fan? Okay.
Yeah, Cher's I really did, because how she started out, she was scared to sing unless Sonny was standing by her. Jimmy Buffett's was a little bit difficult, his autobiography.
How so?
It was hard to follow, and it wasn't really about the music. But Cher's was all about how she really started out in the music.
Do you as a reader, did you feel like Jimmy Buffett's book wasn't edited well enough to, or, it was written more like by someone who's just assumed you knew more than you did?
I can't answer that question, but I just said it was like nothing what I thought he was going to talk about. I thought he was going to talk about South Florida, and I thought he was going to talk about, that, and he didn't at all.
Yeah. Did he mention Rick Springfield in his book?
Pardon me?
I needed a segue. So you're telling me a little story about Rick Springfield.
Well, I was at this state fair a couple years ago, and Rick Springfield said that he was going to be doing some of his new music. And he goes, "I don't want any of you to get up to go to the bathroom when I'm doing my new stuff. You're going to stay and listen to it." So I want T-shirts, and if you buy T-shirts before and after, the lines are long. So I decided I'm just going to just slowly move over to the T-shirt sales and get me a T-shirt. And he starts on stage and, "Hey, you, you, Blondie." And then I realized, I turned around, I pointed, "Me?" And he goes, "Yeah, you. I told you to stay seated." And I said, "Well, I'm buying your T-shirt." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "When did this whole thing come about, buying these overpriced T-shirts and everything?" And it was kind of funny. He goes, "Okay, continue on. Go buy my T-shirt and then go sit down and listen to my music."
Well, see, it would be really cool. There are databases out there of concerts, and I'd love to pull the concert and actually find the tape that had that, and then play that in the background of all of this, because I
would love to have a copy of that.
there are databases out there that have 100,000 live shows, and
yeah. And he yelled at me for going to buy a T-shirt.
So what year was this?
That was 2019. It was it was the last concert, and he was at the state fair.
All right, I'm going to look that up. I'm going to look up Rick Springfield, and if I could actually find it and pull that segment, I'll actually edit it into the tape.
That would be awesome. I'd love to hear that.
So if I could get Rick Springfield to go, "Hey, Blondie."
Yeah. Buying his T-shirt.
And then if I do that, I'll call you, and you'll have to give me a JPEG of the shirt, so I could put the shirt and the audio all together, and we could kind of segue that into this when we put it up on YouTube.
If he does hear this, he needs to sign my T-shirt.
All right, so Rick,
he yells at me, Rick, he doesn't sign my T-shirt.
Rick, we're reaching out to you. So we've reached out to a couple people. So we reached out to somebody I went to school with. Now we're reaching out to Rick Springfield. Now we have a big enough reach. We have a big following between FM podcasting, Streamcast, Amazon Prime. We're kind of almost everywhere. So for people out there, if you know someone who knows someone, because that's how these things get done, maybe we'll get you can send us an email through the station, And or you can send us, if you go to thesolomonchannel.com, there's all kinds of ways to find us. And maybe we can get somebody like Rick Springfield's people to see about getting the autograph.
T-shirt sign.
That you're so worthy of getting.
Yes.
And then the other thing we can do is next time Rick is out there in Concertland, maybe we can have a big poster that says Blondie's back.
And if he's in town, I will be at his concert. That's for sure. I never miss him.
There you go. So in the little time that we have left, let's talk about Herman's Hermits.
Yes.
You see them at the State Fair. So which State Fair is this? Is this the one in Syracuse?
New York State Fair in Syracuse, yes.
That was about 100 and something years in running. It's a well-known state fair.
Yes, and it has 2 bands every day for 10 days.
Oh, wow. So who have you seen in the state fair over the years?
Hermits, well, the list I gave you, the Beach Boys were up there a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
I've seen
we had Al Jardine
brothers up there.
We had Al Jardine at my father's place. Okay. Doobie Brothers. Okay. Was that
Doobie Brothers?
With or without Michael McDonald?
Without.
Okay.
I've also seen Foreigner, and I've seen Foghat.
Okay.
And of course, locally, our Jeff Hall that was playing with Foghat. He just lives in Newfield now. He traveled with Foghat for the Outlaws and Sabri Brown.
Okay.
And now he's in just a local band around here. But seen them at the fair.
I remember seeing the Outlaws and Molly Hatchet in the Broome County Arena a long time ago, and they were good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, seen Molly Hatchet. There's just so many concerts. It's just they all blend in together. But the State Fair.
You ever see Leonard Skinner?
I want to go see him this year, but the concert got canceled
because of the COVID.
CMAC, because of the COVID. I was kind of like, I had tickets for that, and it got canceled at CMAC last year. So
I remember watching something about Leonard Skinner. It was like a documentary, and apparently they opened for the Rolling Stones. And one of the things that the Rolling Stones has on stage is like the big tongue that goes out into the audience. And
I've seen the Rolling Stones, so I know what you mean.
Right. So I guess Rolling Stones management told them, don't go on the tongue. do what you want, but don't go on the tongue. And sure enough, you see all of them jamming together, walking, to the tip of the tongue.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I saw the Rolling Stones at Giant Stadium in 2019. And I thought that was a spectacular show. I've seen them steel wheels at Shea Stadium. They always give just a phenomenal show. And it's amazing how much energy Mick Jagger has, just jumping all over the place.
I just saw him a couple years ago, and he still has the same energy. That was in Philadelphia.
So you've seen the Stones over the years. Aren't they pretty much like kind of the same? I mean, they just play great music, and they've got a lot of energy, and they've got a nice repertoire of music, and they play a lot of the same stuff from year to year, because those are the classics. It's like there's always Sympathy for the Devil, and I say sometimes they play Street Fighting Man, sometimes they play Start Me Up, but they're always consistently good.
Yes, they are. And as I said, Mick Jagger, I think it was like 6 months after he had that heart attack, and he was still bouncing around the stage like nothing happened.
Now, how could a guy like him, who's so thin, have a heart attack? He looks like he's in great shape. He's toned. He gets aerobic exercise all over the place, and he looks like he takes care of himself.
He does. I had a couple girls working with me one time, and they travel with the Stones, and they said that he was constantly jogging in the morning, eating nothing but healthy food every day.
Well, the internet has some really funny things. So not that long ago, I saw a picture of a young Keith Richards holding an infant in his arms, and the caption was, "A rare photo of Keith Richards holding an infant Betty White."
So.
But they were always, I think the Rolling Stones are coming up on their 60th anniversary.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. So to close everything up, what do you think about Summer Jam 50? Are you going to be behind it? Are you going to promote it?
I want everybody out there listening. Get some promoter behind it. I live near Watkins Glen. I'll help you out. We need to convince the town, and it would help New York State out. It would help in the music scene. We need people to get together again and have a concert like that and understand the Summer Jam, what it was all about. Oh. And if that place is big enough, the last time they canceled the Woodstock too, because it said it wasn't, but they have that many people at NASCAR year after year. So if they can have that many people at NASCAR, why can't we have them at a concert?
Well, we could have certainly the second generation of people. I know that Amy Helm played at my father's place. She's the daughter of LaVon Helm. And you talked about the Allman Betts band.
Yeah, and they could be playing.
They could be playing, and then the Dead are still around. They're still playing and still doing all kinds of great stuff all these years later. So it's kind of possible that you could have a reconfiguration somewhat of the Summer Jam. Maybe
the 50th anniversary of Summer Jam. It should happen.
And it should be recorded and the band should be interviewed.
Yes.
So
really.
So do you do anything to help promote concerts to your local area or bring in or do anything with radio or anything like that? And if you aren't, why aren't you?
I did in South Florida, but now I'm kind of like semi-retired. But in South Florida, as I said, I had car shows which brought in all the local bands, and I worked with was it Phantasma back then in the days, and then I did the TV stations and the radio stations when I lived in South Florida. But up here, it's a pretty small area.
Right.
But it's large enough for Summer Jam, though.
So Watkins Glen, they have racing up there still?
Yes.
And
they have.
When's racing
NASCAR,
season?
From May till September.
Okay.
Last of the year is a vintage car race. But they have NASCAR every year in July or August.
And how many people attend?
Over 500,000.
Wow. So 500,000 is just a little notch under the 600,000 mark. And now,
right.
and if you're prepared for 500,000 people, that means they've got all kinds of facility support and infrastructure to support.
Camping, hotels, camps, state parks. There's so many campgrounds around this area and a lot of hotels. And we had the big wine tour countries up there, and there's so many hotels that sponsors them.
Wow. So it's hard to believe that we're basically out of time.
Okay.
So I gotta play my outgoing music, but I want to thank you so much for sharing some great details of music history, because interviews like this are going to live on long after all the musicians and the music are in the popular mindset. So thank you for adding historical context to everything out there. So thank you for having us, and thank you for everyone out there. Thank you for listening.
Whoa!